Hello and welcome to another episode of They Don't Teach Us in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. My guest today is someone we've traveled in similar circles. Like there's this feeling of we already should have gotten to know each other. I've seen so much of the work that he's done, especially when he was someone really introducing the core concept of funnels and utilizing those in a really special way that he was using them across his 5 law firms that he's built. That he teaches through My Legal Academy, and someone who, we're sort of like age contemporaries and everything. And yet somehow, not until this very moment have we managed to get across the camera, much less in person, which hopefully we'll do someday. But I'm very excited to talk with Sam Mollaei. I completely mispronounced that, by the way. I was all in my head, Sam, about it's Malawi like Hawaii, and I'm still doing it wrong, and I hate myself for it, but I appreciate your big grin as I'm doing it. Thank you for that.
Of course, it's all good. It's all good in the game.
That's right. So, Sam, let's kick off with the question. What's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
That done is better than perfect. It's something that I struggled with early in my career, like waiting for the perfect script, waiting for the perfect way to say it, waiting for the perfect video, waiting for the perfect funnel, the perfect website, the perfect email, perfect text, and taking too much time to revise it, sending it to my peers. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Running it back a couple of times, and then finally releasing it and actually realizing that you learn more and you progress through just doing it. And the information that you get back once you do it is a lot more important than you overthinking it on the kind of before you send it out.
So getting that first party data.
Correct. Yes. And I basically, I realized this once the light bulb went off, I started doing affirmation. Done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect is something that I basically repeated to myself every morning. And then I started instilling it into my daily work, and I started seeing faster progress and just putting out there, progress, get some feedback from, it being out to the world, and just quickly reiterate and continue, progressing that way. And then I started seeing results in my own life. And then I started, when I started my program called Legal Funnel about 5 years ago, it was something that I continue to reiterate throughout the program. Hey, these are the steps, but don't forget, done is better than perfect. And I kept repeating it all throughout the program. And people started instilling it into their work style. And then when it was at the end of the program and I was collecting testimonials, the number one line that came out was, Sam, your done is better than perfect mentality was a game changer for me. It's something that I strongly believe in, something that I've seen actually change people's lives. And Charlie, I'm excited to share that I'm actually writing a book called Done is Better Than Perfect. It's being written right now.
Right on, Sam.
And hopefully 2025 Q1 2025 will be shared to the world.
So that you kind of mentioned, like you put in the work to get to this done is better and perfect, which means there's that spark or perhaps the conflagration where you realize, wow, I'm really into perfection right now. I'm getting in the way somehow. Was there a specific moment for you, or was it an accumulation of things that broke you on that?
I think super early in my career, when I was contemplating whether I should start my law firm or not, I met one of my colleagues who graduated law school 1 year ahead of me, and I met with him in person. And he shared with me that he started his law firm, and it's in his first year, but he's already making money. He's already getting clients here and there. And I realized, and I look across the table, great guy, but I looked at him like, he's not a perfect guy. He hasn't figured everything out. But the fact that he just did it and went for it, even though it might not be the perfect law firm and the perfect plan and the perfect steps, but he's still getting some results. And that was, I'm like, okay, well, if he can, so can I. And that kind of was like my first light bulb moment of just, progressing forward without really worrying about, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this correctly? How am I going to do this perfectly?
That's a tough mindset shift for a lot of lawyers that I talk with, because there is obviously a precision to the law that tends to then get adopted into the business practices as well. So when you're working with firm owners and you're saying, hey, look, done is better than perfect, are there any pragmatic steps that you have them take to help them prove to themselves, yes, indeed, done is better than perfect?
Yeah, great question, and hopefully the book will share this in detail. But practical level is you want to first get clear on the goal. Okay, basically, what is the end result? Would you like it to look like? And you don't want to worry about how it's going to get done yet. So this is kind of like the idea of like thinking big. Think like your ideal vision. What does that look like? Write that down, and then this needs to be written out. That's the kind of crucial part that a lot of people miss. People just have this idea. I would like to do this, and like, is it written out? They don't. So let's make sure not to miss that step. Once you know what your goal is in written format, then you want to break it down into simple steps.
Hmm.
Usually 3 steps, 5 steps. So again, that needs to be written down. Then the next part is who's gonna help me, or what are the resources that I need to be able to accomplish this. Basically,
Hmm.
the who's and what's and the hows. And then the part that also is very crucial is the when's. By when are you gonna take these first steps? And that's what I've also seen is a lot of people when they want to get things done, they think in terms of months and years. I'm going to do this year or this month. No, how are you going to do this in the next 3 days, or how are you going to do this today? And what I ever try to accomplish, I try to get it done that day or that week. That means I don't wait to figure out, you know, how should I plan this thing? It's like I just write out the steps, I get clear on the steps, and right away I'm already texting people, slacking people, or emailing people to help me with the different parts. And the last kind of principle is the line is done is better than perfect. So I didn't say doing is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. So that means just the goal is getting it done. So that means leaning towards more of, asking for help, delegating, bringing hiring experts, tapping into your resources, tapping into your team, obviously. And I do that all day long. I'm not doing 99% of the operations or the stuff that my law firm does, right?
Hmm.
I don't do any of that. Just like kind of epiphany when it went through my brain. I had a conversation with one of my best friends, and I was sitting with my best friend and his wife, and I've been trying to help my best friend grow. And finally, just a couple of days ago, my best friend's wife is like trying to get him. It's like, why don't you just listen to Sam and just do what he shares with you? Because I realized he's just doing too many things himself. Was like
Right.
the big, I think, the defining factor. So you gotta let go of your ego,
Hmm.
trust people that are great at specific things, lean towards their expertise, and trust them that they will get it done for you. And that's what I do all day long.
So there's gonna be someone who inevitably is like, well, I followed Sam's journey. I see him with those 5 law firms, my legal academy. Sam has resources. I don't have resources the same way that Sam does. So I think it's usually helpful when that person comes along to say, well, this is really how Sam got started on this journey. These are the early steps. So early on in that journey, how did you get to done instead of focusing on perfect?
Well, when I started, I had zero resources.
Yep.
Just to give some background, when I went to law school, my parents are divorced. I live with my mom. I barely have any money to my name. I think I had about $1,000, $2,000 to my name for like a good year, 2 years, while I was in kind of law school and finishing law school, and then even the year after law school. So I started with zero resources. But over time, I think one is you got to be a good person. You got to be somebody who people enjoy working with. So what I
Mm.
do, all the people that are my peers, um, I give them respect. I treat them well. I make sure that they get paid on time. All that stuff I try to do. Those fundamental, being a good human being, I think characteristics are very important. And little by little, you're building your resources, and
Yeah.
you're tracking everything, and you're trusting people to to do things for you. But everyone's looking for the one thing. But it's a mindset shift. It's understanding stuff, and then it's just little continuous kind of progress.
And for yourself, as you were starting to, build the first law firm, probably learning lessons that you obviously take into the next iterations. For a lot of firm owners, one of the big obstacles to being someone who's doing more in the business overall is they're so busy doing the legal work itself. How early were you handing that off?
I was doing the legal work for the first 3 4 years, so I know what
Okay.
it's like to grind.
Yeah.
That means I was taking on the calls, I was answering all the emails. I was doing the customer support. I was doing the marketing. I was the one collecting Google reviews. I was doing all that. So I know what it is to be an operator too. Um, but little by little, I think it comes down to finding your happy zone, or where you're like good at. I
Yeah.
think look at the name in the author and the book that talks about in detail, and I shared this inside of our program. Is you got to find the zone that you're best at, that you enjoy doing. You got to get very clear on that, and then everything else over time, little by little. Okay, maybe let's just say, for me, I'm not an extrovert. I like being more behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So maybe the things when it comes to dealing with the clients or client communication, or talking to prospects, I'm gonna first delegate that out, because that's not what I'm good at, and it's not something that I enjoy. So I
Yeah.
delegate that out. Okay, maybe I like doing a little bit more of this kind of stuff right here, maybe on the marketing side. So I'm gonna do more of that and less of this other stuff. And I'm continuously kind of evaluating what am I doing, and what can I delegate, what can I automate, and a lot of times what can I just eliminate. A
Yeah.
lot of people just do things that they don't necessarily need to do. You got to be willing to say no in order to be able to for you to be able to grow on a higher level.
Oh, I'm so with you there, Sam. I mean, that is definitely an issue where there is this perception of, oh, I obviously my firm has to do this because it's just convention. There are examples of that in the way that you do intake, or the way that you schedule appointments, or the availability of members of your team. And there's just these conventions that get held only because there's this weird, like, well, what happened if we say no? Well, first off, no one actually knows what it's like to work with a lawyer until they've actually worked with a lawyer. And most people will work with a lawyer very few times in their life. And you have the ability to set the terms of engagement. So for everyone out there, there's no such thing as convention for your client. There's conventions in the profession. And that's a totally different circumstance. I see you kind of like smiling there, Sam, because you know what this is.
Yeah, I'm all about that. Like, you create your own rules, especially in life and in business and your relationships and everything else in life. You're in control, so you call the shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, you create your own limiting factors and everything in life. So no, Elon Musk calls it the first principles, which is basically what
Right.
if this would look like on a perfect, you're not limited by anything. What would that look like? And then you work backwards to figure out then how is this going to be accomplished, without any preconceived notions about how it's already been done, or how it should be done based on what it's already been done. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good to observe some of that and to say, oh, once I've observed first principles, now I can understand why certain things may be a convention and it actually makes sense. And that would be what we might call wisdom within a profession. Whereas some conventions are just, it's the random sacred cow that we don't know why it has become sacred for us. And we're going to hold on to that. Uh, One of the things I really identify when I think of you, Sam, is in terms of conventions, the way that marketing has often been done, the whole build a brand, et cetera. But you with legal funnels, and I remember seeing like the Facebook ads and everything back in the day. And that was one of the first times that you came on my radar. So 5 years ago, right? That was being talked about in some spaces, but you were really pushing with hey, here's a full system. We can get you plugged into this. And it was for many, still today, it is a totally new and novel way of handling marketing. So, with a lot of discussion online these days, more tailored toward let's talk about intake, which is valuable. Let's talk about local SEO, also valuable. I haven't seen as much discussion about funnels, which to me means it is now a huge opportunity yet again. I'm curious about your thoughts on where funnels stand these days.
Love the question, Charlie. It's a very smart question, because I do agree. Right. It hasn't got as much attention as it did before. So
Yeah.
at the time when I was teaching it, I learned it and I understood it, and I also taught it in principles form, because I
Mm-hmm.
knew, and even then I realized that marketing is going to constantly change. So you got to understand it in frameworks and principles, because
Yeah.
the funnels, or like how the leads are captured, how they're going to be qualified, how they're going to be nurtured and automated, and everything on the back end is going to change. And it did change, and I'll try to break it down on how that changed over time. But the principles stay the same. So just to put it out there, funnel in my head is where you want to either capture attention, or be placed in somewhere where people are looking for you. So, in simple terms, if somebody's looking for you, Google. Or if you have to capture attention, usually Meta ads, TikTok ads, YouTube ads, things like that. So that's the
Hmm.
first part. Second is you gotta capture the leads and the contact information at the same time that you qualify your leads, which these days, I'm just simplify it. That's just going to be basically your either your landing page or your Facebook lead form.
Hmm.
Third is that information being integrated into your CRM. So, practical example, Zapier that goes into your CRM, whether you use Clio or whatever you want to use on the back end. And then you have your dedicated virtual intakers who are contacting these leads right away, further qualifying these leads. And if they qualify, getting them signed up right then and then on the very first phone call. That's, in my head, the foundation of the frameworks of what a funnel is. As I shared with that, right, I gave like different practical things of what that looks like right now. You have traffic, either Google ads or Facebook ads. You have your landing pages
Hmm.
and lead forms. You have your integration with your CRM. You have your intakers. That's what a practically, in the most practical terms, what a funnel is these days. Um, but this changes over time, and also people's your prospects what their needs and desires changes over time. So just say back in the day, a lot of people had a lot of time on their hands, so there was people would sit there through a long webinar to
Hmm.
get educated, and then on the webinar that we would introduce them to go book a call. Well, these things change. Well, people's attention span changes, so maybe instead of a webinar, maybe you might need a VSL, just a video sales letter, which is basically a
Hmm.
shorter version of a webinar. Okay, maybe that, and then now that changed over to maybe people don't even need a VSL. Maybe they just need a 2-minute video of people seeing case studies of who you help.
Hmm.
So the kind of like the nuances change over time, but the principles stay the same. And
Right.
it just doesn't get as much attention as before, because I think what it is for me, and I'm on this side, I'm on an interesting side because I'm actually a doer, right? I have these law firms. I'm actually applying these things. I'm not just teaching it. I'm actually have dozens of funnels, dozens of teams and automations that are setting this up. I found that competition, I think, is a big part of it, right? The people
Hmm.
that are kind of doing it successfully are just kind of just doing it, less sharing. I try to do the best I can, Charlie. I kind of have this big dilemma, this conundrum that
Yeah.
my soul and my heart wants to give endlessly. But at the same time, Charlie, the last couple of years, I've been burned a couple of times
I'm sure.
with my peers or whoever, replicating or exactly copying exactly what I'm doing, and I'm like, okay, like this is this is like, so I have this big kind of dilemma. I would love to share as much as possible, but also want to be make sure that I also protect my own interests as well. So kind of
You have
playing the
teams, you have clients,
yeah
you have your family, you have, you have interests. It makes perfect sense.
yeah yeah. So that's like kind of the big dilemma I'm kind of dealing with right now the past year or so. But yeah.
But I would say, you've shared the principles of it. And, for people who want to do copy and paste tactics or just direct copy and paste of what people are doing, sure, you could go in and, someone could go and look at what you're doing and go, oh, you know what? I'm going to do exactly what Sam has done. But to me, if you're not paying attention to the principles and even down to the strategic level, if you go in and learn all the tactics, sure, you might come in and grab a little piece of a pie that has been really constructed by someone else. But I promise you that that person who actually went and constructed via principles, yeah, you're going to come in, you're going to take a little bit, you're going to get a little bit of money heading your way. That person will go and just build a bigger pie for themselves. And you could have the whole time gone and learned the principles, observed a market. And I saw you kind of talking about this. Actually, I think just today, as we're recording this, you're talking about AI coming in and disrupting. There was the big thing published, and you were sharing it as well about how one of the new open AI statements about this is going to replace lawyers who are billing $1,000 per hour and their ability to write briefs, et cetera. If you're not looking for new big opportunities, the best thing that you can do is take a small percentage of what someone else has constructed. So that whole principles first mentality pays off not just for the master, but for the student as well. With with the AI thing, you're clearly looking ahead. And this is another thing that I think of. And I'll be honest, Sam, there are times when I see some of the stuff that you might share about, say, crypto or some of the other, alternative assets things that don't sing to my soul, but I can see that you are a passionate believer in it. And that's the thing that I respect the most. I do think you are very accurate about a lot of what you're sharing about AI. So I'm curious, you being a principles first person, how are you looking at that application of AI to what you do?
It will disrupt unless if you're the one disrupting. So it's not going to completely replace and just like you wake up overnight and everything, your team is just completely disrupted and your business is completely disrupted overnight. But will be a gradual process, and your business will get tougher and you'll have more competition. I first experienced this major disruption with LegalZoom early on. My first law firm focused on doing LLCs, and
Yeah.
then here came this company who's basically like a marketing company, who's really good at marketing, who has the most amazing order forms and upsells, who has the most amazing automations,
That's right.
really bad customer service, but
Famously.
yeah. And I realized, they're gonna completely wipe the business, and they did. My first law firm is completely, doesn't grow. If anything, because has lost his revenue over time. Right now, for me, it's just an automated business that just does his thing. But
Yeah.
when I see that, like when I saw that early and actually saw it play out for the next 5 years, at this point when it's a second round, I'm not going to question it as much. So no, do strongly believe that a lot of lawyers are going to have a rude awakening over time that they're probably going to realize. And I always try to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
So either two ways to go about it. One is ride the wave. That means you got to bring AI into your practice. Start using more ChatGPT, more AI tools into you serving your clients. To be able to bring on more clients and be able to serve them at a faster pace with less overhead usually. So so you could help you with that. Or
Mm-hmm.
two, pivot. It's not something that a lot of people talk about, and so it's a big shift, obviously, right? Nobody wants to obviously change their law firms overnight, but
Sure.
the smart lawyers are adding on other practice types and diversifying the practice types, so that when one is disrupted, at least you got the second and third one, fourth one going. And that really, I realized, Charlie, um, having these last year I had 7 law firms. Then I realized that's way too much. So earlier this year, brought it down to 4 law firms. And then earlier this month, an opportunity arose where I added on at the end of the law firm. So right now I have 5 law firms. And I questioned, what am I doing? Why am I running so many law firms? Well, there's different factors, and I'll talk it out, Charlie. Well, I have a mentor who's also my business partner now. He's also all over the place. He has 30 different startups and a bunch of different law firms and different things going on. And I questioned, like, why do you do this? Why do you have so many things going on? And he shared with me that, listen, there's going to be ebbs and flows in business and economy and in markets and things like that. But when you're diversified across multiple practice types, then
Mm-hmm.
you're lowering your risk, and you don't worry if something gets disrupted, or if revenue goes down 1 month or 1 year, because you got different things going on. So there's some things about focusing, going all in on one, and I think most people should. But at the same time, I think it's important to be somewhat diversified and add on practice types. Especially if you have something that you got that's working for you. Well, go replicate that same exact system, right? You got a marketing, essentially. Law firm growth is pretty repeatable. And it's repeatable. It's just a system. Marketing, intake, a bunch of legal team and lawyers to be able to take care of the work. If you can replicate that over and over, then why not?
Yeah. It's interesting. So you bring up, diversification versus focusing on a singular entity. Obviously, one of the fastest growing business influencers over the last couple of years has been Alex Hormozy, who focuses a lot on the idea of narrow it down to one business that you grow exponentially. We could possibly get into a digression of the fact that his now one business is essentially a holding company for a lot of different businesses. And so there's a little bit of both sides here. I appreciate, though, that you put in there, Sam, this it might work for some people, doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be right for others. I'm curious, when you go out and seek new information, how quick are you to say, okay, I'm going to very precisely follow this because this seems to be correct, and I'm just going to hone in on all of on this thing, versus I'm going to create my own version of this. This is going to be an amalgamation of other pieces that I'm going to put together.
It definitely, you better lean into your own version with your own data and your own
Mm-hmm.
secret sauce, I like to call it, which is like something that you know that other people don't know about your practice type. So no, definitely, you always want to take the winning. My recipe of success is just take the winning framework that works, that's proven, and you apply it to your own specialized knowledge, and then
Yeah.
and add your own touch to it and your own taste to it, and add your own flavor to it, and that will lead to the competitive advantage that you have over your peers.
That seems to be an issue for some folks these days. Is there's so much information available to us that it can be hard to parse through all of it and decide, what works for me, because we don't necessarily have a singular operating code. It sounds like, you have an operating code. What are some pieces of that code that help you make decisions?
Love these questions, Charlie. So spot on. Yeah. So right, information overload galore, especially in the last 5 years. And what I found out over time is you want to refine that information input. So that means you got to start unfollowing more people than you follow. So over the
Love
last
it.
3 years, Charlie, I started unfollowing like 80% of people that I used to follow back in the day,
Hmm.
because I don't want to get distracted. I don't want to have too much information, too many various information. And I became very particular about who I follow on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook, and obviously my emails that I receive too. That's probably the most selective that I am.
Yeah.
So I only try to follow like very, very, very few, maybe at most two or three, if that, when it comes to that specific field. I try to find the best one and just try to listen as intently and go deep with their concepts, where they're trying to listen to 10 different people all saying different things or maybe the same things. And maybe because it's too much information, I'm always trying to learn, consume more, and I never implement. So I think depth matters a lot more than the quantity.
Has it always been that way for you, or was that a lesson you had to pick up
No, no,
on?
definitely not. No. With these things, it's always you constantly just taking clues and constantly refining. That means every day there's change.
Yeah.
And this kind of creates kind of some form of chaos for our team too, Charlie, because I'm on the early adopter, trying a lot of different
Hmm.
ideas, shotgun approach, but my team is the one that has to implement these ideas and try these things out, and sometimes that could be overwhelming for them. So over time, I try to take that information in, filter it, pick and choose our battles that I think that are the ones that will make the biggest impact for us, and then try to get people focused on that one thing, hopefully for that week. Let's try it out. And it's always usually we're not going all in on it, we're just throwing a hook
Yeah.
out there. Do we get any positive signals? As soon as, Charlie, we get any positive signal that we know it's a high ROI, then we
Mm.
basically would try to do. Our system is hire a VA or somebody who can manage it and
Mm.
launch them, give them a goal and incentive, and say, "Go, let's go." And then all we do is we have our core team manage those goals and those people to get that done. It
I
works.
love
Yeah,
that. I love that. I mean, that's that some of that thinking has obviously become more popularized over the last year and a half because of Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. You see people obviously like Brett Tremblay and Joey Vitale talking more and more about virtual assistants, Jason Melton's group as well. That's becoming a much more powerful resource for folks. Now, on a slightly different track from that, but it popped into my head as you were talking about the construction of all of that, is I've seen you, Sam, sharing a lot more online about happiness and your journey with your family, and it seems to me that Sam has entered another phase or another era for himself. I'm curious how that has played out and what you find most rewarding these days.
for sure. I think I like to think that I am is I like to read, behind the surface kind of level kind of stuff. So I am spiritual, Orthodox Jew. So I learn every day. Just this morning I woke up at 5 a.m., went to class at 6 a.m. I'm all about self-development and always looking things on a deeper level. And over time, you're getting clues from different people, different mentors. And I realized that life isn't just about making money, you know,
Hmm.
and business and everything that we chase on a daily basis.
Hmm.
Yes, it's important to get that down, right? You got to play the game. You got to make
Yeah.
sure you're good. Make sure your family's good. Make sure you have a house. Make sure you have enough investments. You got to do that. Right? You can't just say this doesn't matter. Put that aside. No, you got to get that done. But
Hmm.
once you kind of figure out the game and got that game going, then let's change the focus to what really matters, which
Mm.
is God in my order, family, relationships, friendships, loyalty, community, things that are intangible to make other people better, make yourself better, and continuously kind of grow. So the mindset right now is just growth to doing good, being good, and being connected to God, basically.
I mean, I love all of that truly as a spiritual person myself, that finding those connections with things that are bigger than us. Now, Sam, it's actually funny in preparing for this. I was like, there's a question that I would like to ask him. I think he's going to be the kind of guy who understands that this comes from a place of, I think Sam is willing to open up and answer this question. It comes from a genuine place of curiosity. So I haven't asked this of someone before. So I'm excited. I hope you'll play along with me, Sam,
Please.
which is, when you have someone, I mean, you've clearly created a lot. You have built that opportunity for yourself, for your family. There's wealth available, business building available. Are there ever times where you look at it and say, okay, I've put a lot of that energy out into the world, and I wish maybe I had pulled back from that sooner, and I had invested in some of the other parts of my life sooner?
Very good question. For the most part, no, because you grow as you learn, and you learn as you grow. So you could never, and you could never like question things, after the fact, because at that time, if you trust yourself and you're kind of well-minded, um, then you're always taking your best guess and best decision that you can make at that point in your life to the
Mm-hmm.
best version that you can. Because I lean towards God and spirituality, and I have the mindset that I'm always looking to do better and be better,
Mm-hmm.
then it's just about what stage am I at that part of my life, and am I making the right decisions for that part of my life. One decision
Mm-hmm.
that I think is pretty interesting that you bring up this question that I kind of questioned for some time was I ever meant to be a lawyer?
Mm.
Was I ever supposed to be a lawyer? So growing up, I never imagined being a lawyer at all. That was never within the realm of even wanting to, or desire, or possibility even. And then while I was in law school, I was still questioning that. I'm like, what am I doing? And then especially right, I think my climax was while I was in law school. I was working at an externship or internship, and it was one of my mom's cousins' employment law firm. I was sitting there like doing literally discovery work and motions, and I'm like, this is not what I like doing at all. This is not like, how did I
Wow.
sign up for this? I'm like waiting for the bar results, like literally waiting for bar results. I'm like, okay, I'm like looking forward to passing the bar, but I'm not gonna be happy if I pass the bar. And I, had a pretty existential crisis at that point. I'm like, what am I doing? But looking back, I realized that no, that was actually an amazing thing that I went through law school, because it made me structured, it made me disciplined, it made me really good at writing. Give me a lot of intangible and also tangible skills that I could also apply to everything that I do now. And I'm actually really grateful for that journey. Even though at the time it didn't seem like it, it led to all the opportunities and growth that, thank God, that I've been able to get to this point.
I'm so glad you were willing to handle that question, because I what I was looking forward to hearing is that expression of essentially, why bother with any regret about it? There's a time, there's a season, there's a journey that we're on, And the only choice, as you express, Sam, is to make the decision based on the facts in front of you, the life that you're living, and what you have absorbed up to that time. Some people come sooner to different parts of the journey. Some people wait on parts of the journey, and it's all appropriate as long as it is your unique journey. You get this one pass through life. Just, there's no reason to regret, because a lot of times I'm sure you've had this experience working with firm owners, Sam, where they'll come to you and, maybe they're a little bit older and they go, oh my God, I can't, I'm so frustrated that I didn't find this, 15, 20 years ago, but you found it today. And that is what matters. And that's the journey that we're on. And hey, that's the rewarding part about, working with firm owners like we do, which is awesome.
Sure, life is all about timing. But I think the big trap is, don't compare yourself to other people, because a lot of people do that. And I think that's what
Yes.
makes people depressed or throws them off course. No,
Yeah,
I have friends who are not married yet, or they don't have kids yet, or whatever that is, or whatever that is. Everybody's on their own journey. Everyone's on their own journey with their own timings. Um, you know, the just you gotta have faith. We gotta stay positive, continue staying positive on a daily basis, and everything will work out ultimately.
absolutely. So before I ask you the last question here, Sam, if people want to follow you, learn more about you, connect with you, where's the best place to send them?
YouTube. Join me on YouTube. If you just search for my name, Sam Mollaei, or My Legal Academy. I lean towards trying to give as much as I possibly can. I'm there. Also, if you find me on Facebook or Instagram, wherever, I'll be here sharing for the rest of my life.
Awesome. So, Sam, last question for you, the three-parter. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
What I'm reading right now is The Art of Less Doing.
Very
Right.
nice.
Right. Everybody wants to do less.
Well tabbed.
Yeah, well tabbed. Second one is, what am I watching?
Mm-hmm.
Is a YouTube channel called Invest Answers. There's a lot of garbage information out there about stocks and investing. Invest
Yeah.
Answers happens to be that one unicorn, life-changing YouTube channel that, if you really take it seriously and you want to religiously, it is really life-changing. And then the third question was
Listening to.
listening to. I try to, as weird as it sounds, I listen to my own podcast to kind of figure out, how can I improve things, basically. So as weird as it sounds, I listen to myself and try to improve myself.
That's awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for being here, for your energy, your openness. You're willing to take this conversation to different places. I deeply appreciate it. I'm glad we've had this opportunity to connect here today.
Same, Charlie. And I also want to give you props. And I always want to give props to people that deserve props. For people who are playing the long-term game, I have a high respect for those people. And I knew early on when I started watching you, I think 7-8 years ago, Charlie, that I knew you were that guy who just gets it, who has a different perspective on life, who's playing the long-term game, who's also in it to give unconditionally. I think there's very few of us that are in this market, and it makes the journey a lot more fun, especially when we finally meet in person. We get to finally kind of close the loops on that. So I
Yeah.
look forward to meeting you in person and continue this journey for many, many decades to come.
Right back at you, Sam. And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.